welcome back to the Win with Dice podcast, a podcast featuring members of the Win with Dice team. I'm Calvin, and I'm joined here by Ramon.
Hey guys, it's your first time listening to the Win with Dice podcast. It's a podcast all about tabletop RPGs. Calvin and I like to take a casual approach to the hobby, so on this podcast, we like to talk about the games that we run and the games that we play and the cool, wonderful people we get to experience the hobby with. If this is your first time hearing about tabletop RPGs or any game that we discuss on the channel, like I give you permission. Don't tell Calvin to pause the video. Go find some friends. Go find a table. Go have some fun, and then come back. But if you are a player at someone's table, or you're familiar with the game, like hey, why don't you GM a game for your friends soon?
I mean, as long as we get that watch time in the first 24 hours, you guys can do whatever you want.
Listen, I'm all up on board with just getting players to just play the game instead of like listening to people talk about the game, even though that's what we want you to do. But you know what I mean? Like,
just play us in the background
while you play a game. Yes, listen to our soothing voice as ambient dungeon music or something like.
Yeah. All right, so this week, since we've talked about Lancer NPC classes and special classes, we're going to get into Lancer NPC Templates and describe certain ways that you can improve your NPCs to sort of define them a bit further, make them a bit more special, make them a bit more different, and make them a bit more memorable. But before we get into all of that, we have to get to the most important part of the show, the Win with Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week.
Yes, the Win with Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week. Brought to you by Calvin. Thanks, Calvin.
All right. The tip this week is something a bit more player-facing, although I feel like it is something we've said to GMs before. But it is just simply, you don't have to know all of the rules of the game to start playing. This has really helped if you're playing with people who have experience, and that's generally, I think these days, that's generally the way people play. There isn't as much just someone picks up a game and runs it for their friends, but none of them have ever heard it before, so they bought the printed copy of the book and decided to do something with it. With the way online communities work now, and with how popular one specific game is, I think people are more likely to know about tabletop RPGs and more likely to be invited into games. But you shouldn't feel like you can't join these games because you don't know the rules or it might be too complicated. If you have ideas of like the tropes that exist in these stories, if you're doing like fantasy or sci-fi or mechs or anything like that, then you can work with that and work with the people you're playing with to sort of build something up and start getting an idea of how to play the game, but focus more on the character you're coming in with.
Yeah, I think that a lot of modern design right now kind of makes the experience of playing and learning the game a lot easier because it's less esoteric, right? Like before, and there's also a lot of like you said, Calvin, a lot of history to draw on. So it's like most times if you're a player and you're like, I kind of want to do this, like the designer has probably been in your shoes and be like, oh yeah, here's how you do it, right? It's there. Don't worry about it, right? You don't need to memorize anything. You don't need to learn it. You don't need to like learn all this stuff. And like even like podcasts like ours or other channels on YouTube who are like dedicated to just kind of explaining the rules. Actually, they're just kind of rules channels. They're a great help too. So you don't have to go in. It's not a test. Just go have some fun. Go roll some dice. And 9 times out of 10, if you roll high, you did it. Like that's just how these games work.
Usually the games work where it's like if you get the big number, you win the day.
Yeah, you did it. You saved the princess. You beat up the bad guy. You're on your way to glory.
Yeah, you get the crown, save the town, and Mr. Krabs. You
Krabs.
did bring up a yeah.
I was gonna say Mr. Krabs still won't pay you, so like that's fine.
You did bring up a good point though, in that just looking at like podcasts and stuff, and if available for some certain RPGs, you might not have this option, but if available, looking into actual plays of the game you're interested in. Like for me, I've played one campaign of 5e for a few sessions, but I still feel like I have a general sense of it because I watched like 2.5 campaigns of Critical Role and played some Baldur's Gate. Like I can figure out my way around the game if need be. But at the same time, if I'm playing with people, I will ask them questions and stuff.
Oh yeah, of course. You could also ask people questions at the table.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that's wild that people are like kind of nervous about playing a game with their friends about knowing the rules. Like you don't like walk up to a board game and be like, oh shit, I didn't study.
That's a very good comparison.
Yeah, if you know, it's a role playing game, but it's still like a game. It's meant to be enjoyable. It's meant to be
Mhm.
fun. And there needs to be a little bit of like tension, but there's also going to be resolution, right? So just chill out, man.
Yeah, like you wouldn't say you can't play a board game because you don't know the rules, because you would learn the rules to play the board game. It's the same as
Yeah,
this. Yeah.
and even if you're wrong, a lot of times people don't even play Monopoly, right? And that's like one of the fucking oldest games ever. Like people have all these house
True.
rules and stuff. Like and like I would say like every table plays every game differently. So even if you know the rules, it doesn't necessarily that everyone's playing by them.
Yeah, I don't think anybody plays Uno by the official rules.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Yeah, I guess that's your tip, players. You know, it's cool if you don't know all the rules, and or if you're new to a system, or you go into a table with experienced players. Like people want you there to have fun, and if they don't, then you gotta find new people, dog. Like,
True. Like 90% of the time when it comes to tabletop games, if you're not a jerk and you're there to have fun and you're helping other people have fun and they're doing the same for you, everything will work out. If you're in a group that's not doing that, then it's a group issue and you gotta move on from that group.
yeah, you gotta pick the good ones, and then go do something else.
Or communicate, whatever you feel comfortable doing.
Yeah.
All right, let's hop into some Lancer. I am in quite a Lancer mood, actually, because I woke up today wanting to play some Armored Core. So I'm ready to chat some mechs. Actually, I should say I've also been rewatching Gundam Seed, because the English dub is on Netflix, and I hadn't watched it, so...
Yes, that melodramatic. I was gonna say hot garbage, but it's not hot garbage at all. It's like just like normal garbage.
Yep. But it's compelling, though.
Yeah, it's like too much. It's like good, but like bad, right? Like, I don't know. I have feelings about Seed. Like, I appreciate it airing and like being like, wow, Gundam, and then but like now I'm like, man, Gundam.
Dang. I'm super curious about that, actually. Maybe we should have just a fully Gundam episode and we talk about like things we've watched and just like review them and just have a very spoiler heavy episode.
Yeah, we should do that, because I think you've been doing this I'm gonna watch all the Gundams eventually thing. Yeah, and like I definitely have not watched all the Gundams, but yeah, I like, as long as like I'll give it a shot, but if it doesn't vibe with me in like the first little bit, I'm like, eh.
Fair.
I'm not here to Gundam just because it's like to watch it just because it's Gundam. I'm here for the cool mech on mech violence and the political stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think so far I kind of like the sub a bit more, but I mean, we can get into that in the episode.
Anyway, yes, coming soon.
Eventually.
Calvin convinces Ramon that all the Gundams are actually pretty cool.
That'll be our 200th episode. We're not far off from that, actually.
Yeah, sure. That would be kind of fun. It would be fun to do that. All right, well, let us know if you think that's a good idea, because we've taken way too much of this episode just to talk about Gundam.
Yes, let's talk about the actual topic of the episode, which is Lancer and NPC templates. Ramon, what are NPC templates?
So they're like stat blocks that you can add onto your already chosen NPC stat blocks that give them basically just like a buff. Like it arguably makes them better or changes kind of the way that they work, gives them new abilities. And we know we talked a lot about like grunts and stuff in the other NPC reviews that we did, like, gruntifying certain enemies or elitifying them. But these are the templates. This is where all the rules are just to make something a grunt. It changes the feel of like an NPC. So like in my opinion, these are like the coolest part about Lancer. It really kind of like opens up on the GM side about like adding kind of flavor into a generic NPC group, because if you have all of the same dudes, like they're all assaults, but one's a commander, all of a sudden that dude's more important. Or like, oh, one dude's an elite, he gets to move twice, so that dude is like actually pretty cool, but they're still the same enemy, and then you get picked different options, and then all of a sudden they're like they feel different even though they're all the same NPC type. And I think this is really cool to, at least in some of like the more generic ones, to add them across the board to like a faction. So like this faction, like we'll get into it with like the pirates and the mercenaries, they can feel like more of like a well-organized group, or maybe even more like cutthroat or savage or something like that, right? But we'll get into it when we look at them or talk about them. Look at them, talk about them. I'm looking at them. We're talking about
doing both. Yeah, like we said before, like Lancer has a large benefit from being so modular when it comes to the player characters and the NPCs. And yeah, a lot of the really good parts of that come from here. So let's get into the actual templates, and we'll start off with the commander. We're going through these. Well, I'm looking at the core rulebook, so we'll be going in that order, which is not necessarily alphabetical. So yeah, if you're following along, I guess just flip in your textbook to the appropriate page. But we're starting off with the commander, who operate on a grand scale, controlling fleets and armies across worlds and interstellar space. And Ramon, as you mentioned, these guys are made to be leaders, I suppose.
Yes, they are. So, I mean, inherently, they get voice of authority. And, I think that, like, just having, like, a squad or even, like, a named NPC, like, this is your dude, right? Like, he's the squad of whatever the opposing force, like the leader of the squad of the opposing force of the PCs. And, like, he gets a name, he gets to talk shit. Right, voice of authority is awesome. He's able to, like, I keep saying he, but like they are able to make a failed attack from one of their allies into like to re-roll it. So I mean, just them being around already increases the effectiveness of the fighting force, right? But it's cool because like it has a very like flavorful counter, which is like you jam the commander and then all of a sudden he can't order his men around, right?
Yeah, because the commander. Yeah, they have to not be jammed in order to do voice of authority.
Yeah, and this template gives you an extra structure and stress. This guy's like maybe has like, like the Mark II Zaku or whatever is kind of better. It has like the fancier frills.
This is no Zaku.
I don't know anything about the Zaku variants. They all goddamn look the same, and I'm always upset. I was like, why are you space fascists always making your dudes look like just bad guys? Like, why would you do that?
For the aesthetic.
Like, why? I don't get it. Why do they have gas masks? Why? They don't need them. They're robots.
In case gas gets on the robot.
Oh my god. Okay. This is gonna be me bashing Gundam.
That would be a very funny episode.
I know. Just everything wrong, and everybody can hate me because Gundam is so cool. It's cool. Anyway, back to the commander traits.
Yes. So the commander can choose an extra trait to add on to the ones that they already come with. Such as Bolster Network, where all allied characters within line of sight, except for the commander themselves, will get a +1 accuracy on system saves, and tech attacks against them get a +1 difficulty, which could maybe help stave off that jamming.
Oh yeah, for sure. But like, it's like if your players kind of has like a bothersome hacker type of character, just having the commander like there will make it make the challenge a little more harder on them. Like I like the commander because like it feels like whatever the party lacks in or like is strong in or something like that, then the commander can just kind of boost that side on the NPC side, and then things could just get like it's just like it becomes more of like a challenge, and it makes the players want to deal with the commander as fast as possible, right? Like all of a sudden this dude who's just making everybody better makes him like top priority to get rid of, right? And then that in turn kind of makes the narrative of the encounter just that much more cooler because you could put him in like a safer spot. Maybe the players have to like go away from the objective to go deal with that dude. I would say like it's just a little bit more stuff to think about on the player side, and it gives like the GM more stuff to play with, which is always good.
I also realized before people comment, I do realize that the Bolster Network won't help the commander. I reread it.
Yes, it won't help the commander, but everybody else, it's chilling. But if you put it on, like I like to think of commanders too as like they don't have to always be like the super big dude, right? Who's talking shit because he can go smack people, but he could also just be like the actual dude in command in like I don't know, like a scout or something like that, right? Like or maybe even like a some sort of support unit, right? Like the dude who heals people. Like the fact that like he's just like the commander template is like a force multiplier, so you can really you can slap it on anybody, it'll work. But I think that like the idea that this unit is like purely to make the whole unit, like the whole I would say like army or like whatever fighting force better, I think it's a really cool fit.
Yeah. It did remind me of something. I'll probably comment on it afterwards, but it did remind me of something else we talked about recently that I'll bring up after we talk about the traits, because we should actually go over those as well.
Yeah. So we got bolster network, like Calvin said. We got press attack, where it's a reaction to an ally taking damage. The commander can make an attack on, but only doing half damage. So that's pretty cool. Like you attack my man, I attack you. Press on. It's a recharge 4+. As a quick action, the commander can either clear a stun condition or a jam condition. Like that's crazy. I mean, a lot of times, like if players have those options, they'll go for it, right? Because like deleting someone's turn or taking off someone's ability to attack is like a really strong thing. But just having somebody on the field who could just be like, actually no, you're back on duty, get in the fight. And like they get their shit together. I like that one a lot too. Quick march I think is my favorite one. I always take quick march on a commander. As a protocol, you just get to tell one ally to boost, because I'm all about positioning and making people go fast.
Yes.
Yeah, all of a sudden, some dude who's like, oh, he's too far away. And then all of a sudden, he's just like, actually, he's right next to me. Oh, no, I'm in danger.
That's good leadership.
That kind of stuff.
You make your mech faster.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and then military discipline. Allies adjacent to the commander gain +1 on all attacks, saves, and checks. So, if you have military discipline and you have voice of authority, and then, they can re-roll it, they get +1. You stick this dude next to some long-range artillery, and then all of a sudden, the players are having a bad time.
Yes. Yeah, because you had pointed out like different flavors of commander depending on the sort of base mech, and it kind of reminded me of the Envoy from Starfinder 2nd edition, and how it has like it's built with different leadership traits. How you can lead from the front, you can lead from the shadows, that sort of thing. This for me, like it's very similar in that depending on like what sort of base mech you have, like if you're a long range, if you're a support mech, that will change how the commander's leadership works, and that might be able to determine different traits you would take on. Like if you want your allies to get up there ahead of you while you hang back and you command them from the rear and support them, or if you want to be up front, so if someone damages an ally near you, you can get in there and push back against them, or you can give them a bonus on saves because you're very close to them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that I'm trying to think of the times I used commanders. One of the fighting, I think it was the second mission or third mission where you guys were on the water planet, where you were for like the stream game, and that I ran a while back. And yeah, I used the commander for the privateers because I was like, this is like an organization, they need a commander. So I made like a commander unit, I guess. So just like anytime I needed someone to be in charge, like this NPC template plus NPC type would be it. And I think it was a little bit larger. I think it was a size 2 mech. It had like some grenades. It had some like reaction weapons. I forget which one it was off the top of my head. But yeah, it felt good, I think, except for when the Blackbeard just ripped it apart, and that was fair. I was like,
I wonder who did that.
But it was cool because I was able to like maneuver a bunch of people around. I think the whole fighting force had they had Grunt. What are they called? The ones with the lances, the spears. I can't remember something. I should go look it up.
Oh, the cataphracts.
Cataphracts, yes, the spearmans, the cataphracts. It had the engineers, so they was popping out turrets, and the dude was able to like tell the cataphracts to like move an extra one. So all of a sudden, this cataphract is up in someone's face, like because they can move like 8 or something ridiculous. It's like a pretty big movement. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I like commanders.
Yeah, I haven't used them, but I kind of do want to get the. I mean, since we talked about that one shot pretty recently, I could probably find a good spot for a commander, because I tend to lean on just using like elite and ultra for my leader units, but I think commander makes it more obvious that this is the person leading the group and giving directives, and then that just sort of plays up that role-playing element a bit more than just making them stronger.
For sure. All right, let's move on to the next one, RVPs. So these are like remote RPVs. My bad. not the DVDs, the RTVs. So the remote piloting vehicles, these are basically like your drones or like your robots. They're just no pilot, or they're off site or whatever, but the exact same way as regular dudes, except they are always affected by impaired. They're not affected by anything that targets like pilots directly, but they get an extra 5 HP because you don't have a cockpit. It's just computers. And they're vulnerable to tech attacks. So yeah, it's kind of like the idea that robots exist and they could just be without a mech inside of, like a person inside of them. I think personally, like, I don't really like the fact that they're always impaired. So I usually give a toss up. It's like, usually it's like either they're always impaired and they get the 5 HP boost, or they're not always impaired and they just don't get the 5 HP boost. Because sometimes that 5 HP can turn, like, it could be the difference between like a small, like a weaker NPC becoming something that's a little bit too strong, a little bit, right? But it's like kind of off balances, but it's just kind of sucking to just miss as like a GM. So why bother? Yeah,
that's fair.
I would do either or. I wouldn't just do all of it.
Yeah, the permanently impaired feels like a pretty major inconvenience. I feel like vulnerable to tech, that makes sense to me. Bonus HP because it can ignore certain kinds of damage, that makes sense to me. Well, I guess, but you're also immune to anything that can affect a pilot directly, which there's a limited number of things that do that, but you're immune to it. But impaired, that's like that's a lot to have to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, like, and it gets a little yeah. So I would say, like, if you're gonna run the impaired stuff, definitely give it 5 extra HP, or like just have your players choose, being like, hey, this is clearly a robot. Would you rather have 5 HP and always impaired, or like not extra 5 HP? Because sometimes groups are like, I can't do the damage, dog. Like, I don't 5 extra HP. It's gonna take me forever. So yeah, I would give your group the option to see how you guys run those. But yeah, that's the only thing about these ones I can think of. Calvin, how about you?
I was kind of wondering how well this would combo with Grunt, but I feel like, well, just looking at it, it would just be this, but then it also only has 1 HP.
Yeah. You wouldn't. Don't use both. Don't use both.
I do like the idea of just dropping a bunch of remote piloted mechs onto a group of players. It might make more sense to make them grunts, depending on how many you want to throw at them, but I just like the idea of a horde of, like, drone mechs, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, they serve different purposes, right? Like, I think they live in the same, like, thematic ground of just, like, chaff units, right? But I actually, like, hardly ever really use it. The only thing I actually do is probably just slap on the invulnerable to tech attack, or vulnerable to tech attack, like tag or trait or whatever, onto whatever thing that's like, oh, this is definitely robotic, right? Like, there's no person in here. It'd be easier to tech attack it.
Yeah, and that, again, that makes perfect sense for what this is. All right, let's scoot on to the Elite. This is definitely one that I like to use a lot. The Elites are tougher than most enemies. Not as tough as Ultras, which we might get to this week, or we might push the other ones to a different episode. But the Elites are kind of what I use for, like, lieutenants and second in command and stuff. Again, like, I feel like I should use the commander template a bit more, but if you want to give something a quick buff, I think the Elite template works for that.
Well, I think the Elite template is just basically, like, to me, the way I see it is, like, you're just having 2 units, like 2 NPC units in the same slot, right? Like, it's just that you get to have two turns, you get 2 structures. It's just like double the value of NPC, but except that, like, they have to share an HP bar, right? Like,
yeah, which itself also doubles, yeah.
Yeah, so, like, and it's cool. I mean, like, you can flavor it as, like, they're just, like, the Zaku Mark X5 or whatever, the new one. And they just roll out.
Yeah.
This one has, like, a claw hand and, like, a laser. I don't know what, like, Zaku's have. They have, like, cool laser hands. They're just, like, they pop out and they float around. They go choo choo choo, right? I remember those. Those are cool.
It's been a minute since I've seen actual UC stuff, so.
Yeah.
Which I know some Gundam fans aren't going to be very happy about, but
maybe it's the UCs I'm not into. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, I like watching a show for a couple of seasons that I don't have to remember anything about that universe all the time.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So elites are really cool. I think you could use this on top of like the other templates that give you an extra boost, like an elite commander with like 3 structure. That's kind of cool. 2 turns, 3 structures, ordering shit around. That sounds pretty dope.
Yeah.
It also gives you like the opportunity. I think having the extra structure is for someone to like get hit and then surrender, or like get hit and be like, all right, I'm gonna fight again. I'll see you guys later, right? And then just like leave the battlefield and like retreat. Like, I feel like more NPCs should just fucking retreat. It's Lancer, just leave. Like, you're in robots, like just fly away. Like,
if you're being exploded, simply say no.
Yeah, simply say no, right? No.
Yeah, actually, I think stuff like, and we'll probably like, there's several templates that have this sort of thing, but having an extra turn or having an extra structure really makes these NPCs stand out. Having an extra turn especially, because players will look at that and see, that's not something I can do. This guy's clearly more powerful than us in some way. Like, this NPC is more effective somehow. And having an extra structure just really, again, like, it makes it stand out, because it gets to a point where another NPC would have been destroyed, but depending on how you as the GM describe it, just making it clear to players that, like, yeah, it has gone through significant damage, but this machine is still moving. This enemy is like clearly a bigger threat than all the other ones.
Oh yeah, for sure. I would even, like, if you wanted to, you could just like even drop it in mid-combat, being like, actually, this is not even my final form.
Yeah. I do like the idea of just the dropship swings by, drops an elite in the middle of the fight. An elite commander, no less.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, the NPCs, they start to rally around this leader. Because from their perspective, they're the heroes, obviously.
Of course, right? Like, they should have names and like medals and like all of the fun things. Like, just have more fun with your NPCs and then make them run away so then they can fight again. Like, yeah. Like, there's no honor in dying for no reason to a bunch of jabroni PCs. Live on, right? Like,
oh, there is a certain. Well, there's actually a couple certain missions in Armored Core that I don't want to spoil the specifics of, but there's like a mission where you're attacking a base and the leader is like getting his mech set up, like getting it prepared, because you kind of showed up unexpectedly. Well, there's a couple. I think people will know the specific one I'm talking about when I say, like, depending on what happens in the mission, the person's dialogue will be different. Because I'm just thinking again about dropping this commander in and all the NPCs feeling heroic. But if you take out the NPCs before the leader arrives, he shows up and he's like, "Am I too late?" Because again, they feel like the main characters of their own story. They feel like, they will have that, they care about the people they're allied with. And I think if you slap these powerful templates onto a character, depending on how you want to play out those characters, of course.
For sure. I feel like Lancer is such a cool neutral ground, because like a lot of the times I think that the Lancers are actually they should be like the people who are they're fighting on their home turf. They should call them aliens, because they're actually coming from space. Like think about it, right? Like they're literally showing up to a different planet and just enforcing their will to shoot whoever they want to in the name of like fucking union. And these people are actually freedom fighters against an empire. You know what I mean? Like, the Lancers are the bad guys. Like, they just are. Like, so I feel like there's like a sense that, that like you're lost when like you just make your bad guys just space fascists for no reason, right? Whenever there's space fascists for no reason, like, really think about what the fuck you're doing and don't do that.
I'm actually really fascinated by.
You can, but like, don't do that. Like, if you want people to be like, oh shit, maybe this isn't that war isn't cool. Like, just don't do that.
Yeah, I'm actually really fascinated by the idea of Union as an empire, because that's not incorrect.
It's not. Like, that's funny, because that's how everybody else, like fucking the Carrick and Baronies, they're like, Union is like, they're like, they basically had a war of like who will consume the other one, right? Secom is like a failed like part of that empire. Like they actually were the space fascists, but like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and like the whole point of Union 3 is to like clean up their act, but they're still the ones with like the control over all of the blink gates, right? They're still the ones in control of like mana and like operating all the systems and like all this shit. And like they're still the governing body that is made up of all the corporations that we buy all our mechs from, right? But they still have to like Union as a concept as a whole, they just show up and they use like a lot of soft politics to fucking try to convince you to join them, because it's like, cool, we got this cool technology, you don't have to be alone, you could be a planet in Union. We still have to be a part of Union, you can't just be your own independent state or whatever. There's no independence under Union, it's just how it works. I will get off my soapbox now.
Oh no, I mean, I'm quickly realizing we might not cover all the templates in this episode, so
I don't know why I'm in a mood to rant and rave over this clearly simple. These are really cool.
No, I'm genuinely interested because like Union, like it has its utopian pillars and everything. Like it has this morality it tries to operate by, but like you said, it still has a lot of control over. It has control over the blink gates. It has control over the flow of money, basically. It shows
even
they
GMS,
show up. Yeah.
Who makes everything, right? GMS makes everything, like, but that's a union organization, right? Like, the heck? What are you gonna do? It's like, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna pick your brain. We'll get to the other templates. So, but for you, like, does it change anything if they have these certain pillars that they're trying to live by or trying to operate by? I should say.
I think that like the positioning that Union is always good or right is an incorrect position, because not even like, I don't think Tom's and Miguel's writing even puts them like that, right? I think Union is actually just kind of on an apology tour from SECOM. Like that's like actually what they're doing.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
they're like the idea of Union. We got really dark there for a sec. Let's try and do this Empire stuff, but a little bit softer, right? So they do this. So instead of like just going there and being like, you're a part of Union or else, it's like, hey, actually Union's pretty cool. You can have faster than light travel, you'll connect to the wider galaxy, and like we're on Cradle, the fucking, you know, home planet of all of human beings. Like, come on guys, we are actually the good guys here, right? It's a lot of convincing, but like I don't think they really have a choice to join Union or not, because Union will always try and get them to be a part of them, right? Like there's no like, okay, cool, we're done here, right? There's no we're done here. It's just they're gonna be there forever. And
Yeah,
until
we'll just
you join,
try again later.
Yeah, until you join or until there's rebellions, and then we're gonna send some Lancers in. Like that's basically the two choices you have. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. But I mean, bad guys are out there for sure, and like good guys are also out there, and they can be on the same side or against each other or whatever. But I think that like leaning into the neutrality of stuff. But like, if you just have like a bunch of wacky, you know, Saturday morning villains all the time, it's just like, I don't know. I feel like the whole like mech and war and guns and violence and boots and mud and lasers kind of gets lost in the villainy. You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah, no, that's totally understandable. Like, I mean, I know I prefer the wacky villains because I get to do silly voices, but absolutely, I think the Lancer setting, it has a lot of room for that sort of, those politics, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's like my bias though as a GM. Like I always have, all of NPCs just have names and they care about each other sometimes. Like, you know, even as like we're playing D&D or something, a bunch of goblins, I will always remind the players that, you know, the goblins have names and they have family and they have loved ones, and I'll let their allies call out as soon as you take one out. They're like, oh no, it's Bill. Bill had a child.
I remember you gave all those sea hags names, and you expect, I mean, everybody else cares about them. I'm still on the fence because they were trying to take my blood because, you know, I happen to need that to live. I would like to keep most of it.
Well, you know, it's really useful.
Flattering, but still.
Yeah, but just because you want to kill somebody, take their blood, doesn't mean you can't have friends.
Well, I mean, apparently, because we did take on one of those sea hags, much to my character's chagrin, on her own ship, no less.
It was a good time.
I think that's a really interesting perspective on Union as an empire. I guess that's sort of, in some ways, how it could be, how it's been described. Is just, I think there's a bit more of a focus on trying to make it seem like the, I don't know, good guys feels like a stretch now, but I think that seems to be the intent at least. But yeah, more of a apology tour, I suppose.
I feel like I'm boiling down like a lot of nuance into like my bad, we messed up, we'll be nicer this time. But it kind of how it is. That's kind of how it is. And like a lot of the villains, I think, at least from what I've read in like the writings and stuff like that, it's like it's like Secom is just wants to be they're like, fuck, the Empire is not the way that we want it to be, so we're gonna hide in the shadows. Right?
Yeah.
Found Harrison Armory and pretend that we're not, just fascist weapon producers. But we changed because now we're working with Union again, but just, under layers of like corporate shells. So yeah, there's like a lot going on in the Lancer lore. I mean, it'd be fun to probably do like a Lancer lore kind of, not a deep dive, but like, I guess, perspectives on how we like look at it, because I mean, again, like we always say, just take what you like and leave the rest on the table. Like, you don't need to engage with it. If as a GM you can make up your own stuff and it's fine.
Yeah, I think for me also, splitting away from the narrative of it into the more mechanical stuff, I'd like to position Union as the good guys, or at least I would try to, because that's so far these sort of one shots I've been doing, it has been players working for or with Union. And I mean, in a longer term campaign, I might think to play with that. I haven't had the opportunity to do a longer term campaign, so I can't really say that's what I would specifically do because I haven't done it yet. But when it comes to like a one shot, I kind of feel like it would be easier to just say, hey, you're working with Union, they're ostensibly the good guys, and they need you to go fix this weird moon and stuff like that. Like, I think it's easier for players to hop into the seat of, and I'm probably going to do this for my one shot at the convention later. I think it's probably easier for players to just see, you're working for the good guys, so what they're asking you to do is probably a good thing. Also, the bad guys are cartoon pirates, basically. I did call my bad guy pirates the Shining Diamonds when I was running them, but that's because I was obsessed with making JoJo's references at the time.
Well, yeah, that's true. Now they're, I don't know what you're gonna call them now, but yeah, even those pirate dudes, like, not all of them are evil or silly. You know what I mean? Like, put in some real people in there sometimes.
Yeah, I think if I was more invested, I probably would have given them. Well, I mean, they did kind of end up having some personality, but that was more because I was like being very silly with the voices.
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah, no, I that was an interesting perspective on Union. I hadn't really thought of them that way as deeply, because I was just kind of thinking like they're the guys the players are working for, so they're as good as they are capable of being. Yeah, that might change up some things that I have some ideas I might have for some campaigns I might run.
Yeah, like Union, like a lot of times, like Secom is just Union, just from the past and what they don't want to be anymore, right? But like before ThirdCom thing took over, like that was them, that was Union, like rolling across places, stomping up societies, getting people in line, right, by force or by persuasion, by gunpoint. Like they were doing that. So it's not like the Union now are good people. They're actually just trying to do better, which I mean, like, I think it's a cool place to be at, because if you play, like, okay, not a secret of Wallflower, Secom stuff is everywhere, but I think like playing through Wallflower like gave me the perspective of like where I feel Union is, because I did play like a Union person, and like the idea of like what it means to be a part of this big like overarching thing, like, and it was the only thing I think of is like an empire. I was like, what am I doing here as like a person trying to do some good in this place, and being like one of the only people who can do some good in this place, and like constantly being reminded of all of the failings and all of the people who are being missed in that kind of like situation, right? Like if you're not a part of Union, you don't get the luxuries of being a part of Union, but like some stuff is like you still need to be like dignity of being a human, right? Like, so it's like weird.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. I would suggest, I guess, secret second tip, I would never write like a civil war perspective without giving both sides at least like some humanity. Like one side can't just be like, we're the dudes who are in trouble and need help, and the other side are just the space fascists. Like it should kind of make sense somewhere. So I don't know. I would always suggest giving like the touch of that, because then you kind of get lost, and then you're like you do the thing that's kind of like the issue right now, where people are just like villainizing the other side for just being not with them, which is like the fucked up part.
Well, Ramon, that's why I like Gundam Seed so much, because you get to see both.
God.
You get to humanize both sides.
No, but they don't. They don't humanize both sides.
Well, they humanize one person.
They're just yeah. One dude gets like, oh, this dude's just a real person, and then C2 was like, oh, here's this other dude. He's real angry. He got radicalized, and they put him in a Gundam. And you're like, God damn it. What are we here? What are we doing right now? We already solved racism. Like, cut it out. Like, you told me this. You told me you solved racism before.
Just imagining the beginning of Seed Destiny. You told me you solved racism. What are we doing here?
I mean, it's definitely not like that. But, like, it's also just like what are we doing here again? Every time, nothing ever gets resolved, and we're just the space dudes and the Earth dudes are shooting at each other again, and like for reasons, because some dude in a fancy coat with all the evil trim is like, mahaha, we're better than the Earthlings because we're in space, and then we're like, we're gonna make dumb robots with gas masks and laser fingers. and then in the final act, we're gonna be betrayed by our Char, who's gonna have a giant death laser to kill everybody. And one dude in one Gundam is gonna beat him up and solve racism.
For at least a couple years.
Yeah, for at least until the next one. And that's how that's how Gundam do. From my perspective. So
there must always be a Char, there must always be a space weapon.
I don't know, if Gundam ever was like, actually, so here's the thing, right? Like, Evangelion got it right. I'm gonna go back. Like, Evangelion, like, they like figured out how to make that crazy ass shit show like actually good with all the movies they just released. And it solved a lot of problems. I mean, not a lot of problems, but like it made the story feel a lot better and closed. But like Gundam, I'm just like, whatever. Like, we're always here. It's the final act. There was some resolution said. All the bad guys are good guys now because you Naruto them. And then you're just like, I gotta go kill Char now. And then like, we're there. And then Char gets defeated. And Char is like, I guess humanity was the real villain all along. And then like he blows up.
Oh man. that just matches so many Chars. We were talking about templates, I think. This is all staying in, by the way, this whole episode.
Oh my god. The people are gonna kill us. They're gonna be like, I was trying to learn about templates.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we're supposed to be helping people.
I don't know, man. I mean, do we even continue? Or did you just want to call it here?
I think we can squeeze in at least a couple more, because the next two aren't very long, and I did want to at least talk about Grunt today.
Okay, we can get there. Alright, here's something I'm pretty excited about. That isn't a blonde dude in a mask. All right. Okay, exotics. Even in a galaxy of wonders, exotics are strange and dangerous enemies. Some feature unique technologies not available to the wider galaxy, or wield archaic weapons styled updated for the modern day, while they carry equipment or adopt tactics that are totally alien to Union doctrine. So exotics are like, hey, do you want spooky powers? Here's some spooky powers.
Yeah.
Yeah, on my notes, I just put down Blink Space Carver is wild. So like that's one of the traits. Okay, we'll get to there. That's for the template, right? So scans don't reveal any information about the exotic systems because it's a weird thing. You're like, I don't know what this is. The computer's like, I don't know what this is.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a base feature.
Yeah, right. Like it makes it spooky because I mean like. If people not waste a turn, but like if you're playing, like you're not revealing stuff to the players, like clear, like this is an exotic, and they're like, okay, I want to scan it, or like there's lots of abilities and traits and stuff like now that gives you like a free scan, and it just brings up like nothing, and the players are like, what? What do you mean? And be like, I don't know.
Yeah, you have to use an exotic after you've established with your players how to deal with regular enemies.
Oh yeah, right. And then like it'd be yeah, that would be pretty cool. Yeah, so you get hardened target where you get +1 on system saves, and you get tech attack receives a negative difficulty, and then exotic systems you get to choose up to 2 from the exotic system trait. I think, in my opinion, the one that you should take always is Blink Space Carver, because having the ability to teleport when you move is wild and makes you just become the Enderman, right? Like you're just people will freak the fuck out if like you could just teleport, being like, actually I want to be over here now, and they're like, what? No, stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, could you imagine just like a Ronin? It's just like, actually, I'm right in front of you, and then you're like, you're already dead, kid. Like,
nothing personnel.
Yeah, nothing personal. You bet your ass you'd be nutty and like, and like I would even say too that like you could choose to just move normally, right? You don't have to let them know that you can teleport, and then just reveal, right?
Yeah, why not?
This thing's exotic. Yeah, right. You also have living chassis, where like this thing gets the biological tag, which, you know, wild.
It's a very cool one to me, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking like you should just put this on. I mean, like I guess like something's already biological, you can't really make it more biological. But like I think that all of like the cool monsters that you kind of run with these days, Calvin, in your kaiju, you should just like do this.
It is a good one. I might have to come back to this for Mecha Turkey Dora.
Mecha Turkey Dora. They've revived him.
We can rebuild him.
They can rebuild him better, stronger. Real space extrusion. So the exotic is actually an extrusion of a higher concept entity, not in the physical space. Oh my god, like it could be like Ghost. It could be a ghost version of King Turkey Dora. His spirit haunts the corporeal world once again.
Freaking mech ghosts.
Yeah. Which I think is fitting because we're Canadian and our Thanksgiving is in October, so.
Yeah. Spooky. Yeah. Spooky Thanksgiving.
Spooky Thanksgiving, yeah. Exotic games resistant to all damages, however, they only deal half damage. I think this is really cool. I mean, I've never used this one. I like the idea that and also it's just a ghost. It can pass freely through anything. You know, it's just actually just like a specter, which is wild, and I want to have a whole bunch of these just running around.
Yeah, man. Like, moon's haunted.
Yeah. The moon's haunted. Yeah, the moon's full of ghosts. Yeah, living weaponry. I just have this idea of just like you're just fighting a bunch of hands from like an eldritch being. That would be kind of cool. Give it like this, and then you could have laser hands, but except they're just like a hand.
Is this a Gurren Lagann reference, Ramon?
Yeah, it is. So you're just fighting hands and feet, right? From like an interdimensional species who decided to cut off their evolution. So, you know, fuck those guys. I want a drill, so I'm a drill, right?
Yeah.
See, you know the worst part is about Gundam.
Yeah.
Even Gurren Lagann's people had like a really like the Gurren Lagann's evil space fascist, dimensional fascist people had a really, really good reason that like spiral energy could actually destroy the whole entire world, right? They're like, okay, we can't trust monkeys with dimensional nukes. We gotta stop them, right? right? Like that, those guys, they're kind of sympathetic. They're like, listen, dude, we've been alive forever. Like, we don't understand. Like, you could just blow up the entire universe and everything you love is gone anyway because you couldn't just chill out, right? You got too much spiral power in you. And you know what? Even at the end of Gurren Lagann, the space fascists won because, like, fucking Simone, who has the power to just drill the entire galaxy, was like, actually, I'm just gonna chill out, not use my super awesome powers to kill everybody by accident. So yeah, I'm just gonna leave it up to everybody else. And then, like, it worked. They're like, you know, they like influenced Simone. They're like, you know, I mean, they're a bunch of dicks, but they were also kind of right. And Simone's like, you're a bunch of dicks, but I see your point. And they learned.
I feel like it would have been shorter if they just weren't jerks.
Yeah, what's there to learn about Zeon? I don't know. Tell me what they stand for, other than stupid lapels and and Zaku's and being like, damn you monkeys from Earth. Like, what are they doing here, man? Anyway, okay, back to living weaponry.
I don't know, man. I haven't seen any UC stuff for a long time. I can't tell you.
I feel like I haven't too. I feel like this is just like memories of like a kid of like being like, what the fuck is this? Like,
one day we'll have our Gundam review podcast where we review one episode a week.
That's true. That would actually be really awesome. We should just forget about this podcast. Just do that one.
Episode 200.
Yeah, episode 200. We're cutting it off. But it's okay. Living weaponry.
Yes.
You're immune to being jammed because you're just parts. You're just a person parts. You can't jam a hand. Actually, it's not true. I could jam my hand at the door right now, but that's different. It becomes biological or semi-organic components, and then when you reload, you gain 1d6 HP, which I think is actually pretty cool.
Yeah, I think this is closer to Mecha Torpedo.
You're like vibing. You're like, yes. Yes. Okay, so there's also paracausal weaponry, where your weapons just cannot be reduced in any way. It just works because paracausality. You were already shot when you walked into the room. Like,
you take damage because you've already taken damage.
Exactly, right? Chronotaurus, once per round, you know, the exotic, has a localized distortion of the flow of time. It may either reroll 1d20 or force another in line of sight to reroll 1d20 as a reaction to get the new results. I really like this a lot, and like I specifically like this a lot on like a Mirage, which already is able to like be in two places at once because it's like, oh, you know, like they're teleporting or whatever, right? And then just like flavor it as like they're actually just warping through time. Right?
Oh man, like I think this would be a really cool like time ghost fight if you put an exotic on Mirage.
Oh yeah, and like 4 of them, just like people would be so bad. People would just be like, "What? Why did you do this?"
And then at the end of the fight, the players realize that the mechs they were fighting, they look just like their own.
Oh, spooky. Oh yeah, that's pretty cool. And last we have Regenerator. It regains 1/4 of their HP if they don't gain. If they don't regain the HP if they take energy damage during the same round, which is pretty cool. I don't know, it sounds ridiculous actually, especially on like one of the chunky boys. Like, jeez, and especially if the players just did not take any energy weapons, which I think there's usually one person rocking the energy weapon, or some sort of mechanic that's able to utilize heat or like the trait talent to like make your stuff energy weapons or something.
Yeah, I think you can, like, if you do too much damage, it's not going to be able to recharge because it's going to be dead. But
yeah, exactly, right? But you'd have to like focus it down like pretty hard. Some of the like, you know, some of the stuff, I think the Goliath has like a shit ton of HP, like getting 1/4 of that, or like even like a Swarm has like 20 HP or something. Like, that's wild. Like, just being able to, which I think is super cool, being able to like regenerate yourself. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if we should save Grunt for the next episode because this was not a normal episode because we did like 20 minutes of Gundam chat and Union chat.
It's true.
I feel like we might have a lot to say about Grunt. What do you think?
I think that we've said everything we have to say about Grunts already.
Really?
All the other ones. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
well let's get into it then.
Yeah, like Grunt. We talked about gruntifying enemies. We talked about, you know, so okay, Grunt. there's things about Grunt. Okay, it has 1 HP versus whatever the normal HP it got. It has 1 HP. It can never have more than 1 structure and 1 stress. And if they get, obviously, like they get reduced, they're just immediately destroyed. They don't roll on the chart or anything like that. And then when they take, so they're immediately destroyed if they take heat from any source other than their own systems. So like basically they have like 1 structure, 1 stress, 1 heat, 1 fucking HP, right?
Yeah.
So it's like they will die immediately by looking at them. I like grunts a lot. I feel like people should just have like a core squad and then just supplement the extra slots with like grunts, because they're dangerous because they have the weight of dice behind them, but they're not. If the players look at them and like really want to dig into them, like they can take them out, and it gives like the credence of like all the template weapons. So like your cones or like your blasts and stuff like that. It makes them like that much more useful, because like if the map is like 20 something wide and like you only have like 4 or 5 dudes, like the likelihood of them being in like a blast 2 or blast 1 space is like not that likely, right? I mean, like you could as a GM just kind of space them out, and like, or even if the players are like being surrounded, there's not a lot of opportunity. But if you have like a group of grunts kind of rolling in there together, that's like a cool opportunity for somebody who's playing like an artillery or something like that to be like, oh cool, I get my cool moment where I shoot one dude and then blow up all his friends, right? Like you want to give those moments to the player. It puts the pressure on to the players, but they're all kind of paper thin men. But as a GM, and if you want to put the pressure on even more to your players, like you can like use that to your advantage, because you know that they're one and done. So the units you choose to gruntify could either be support units who are just here to just kind of like live and put a bunch of lock-ons, like scouts. I love grunt scouts because they're basically just like the scout drone, but like you could just, you know, they're actually less than the scout drone. Yeah, the scout drone has more HP, but you know, they're able to provide all that support. And if you have like, you know, a couple of them around the board, like if you lose one of them or 2 of them, it's fine. But you know, it's just kind of like use them as a force multiplier, or like I use them to make the rank and file of like a faction feel like a rank and file of a faction. So if they're more kind of hardline or like very specific, or like, you know, they only use specific gear, like I would just make the classic grunt assaults, right? You just have a whole bunch of them. They pick one dude and they fire at them. It doesn't matter if they hit or miss, they're gonna do some damage because of that reliable, right? Or like maybe it's like, oh, this dude's a little bit more high tech. Maybe their baseline model is like one of the laser gun dudes, right? Or like maybe you could even have a bunch of grunt operators, which sounds hilarious. They have all these weird suicide people just flying at you, and then you're just like, why would you do this?
I think the grunt like it helps to sort of like, you get to increase your numbers, you get to sort of overwhelm a bit, but the players also have the ability, like you were talking about, to like have the feeling of taking out a bunch of guys at once, which is part of, I guess, the mech tropes. Similar to like how minions work in Mutants and Masterminds and like other games, where you have these very low level, very weak enemies that the players can take out very easily. They are very powerful, well, not very, but they are relatively powerful on their turn, just by merit of numbers and having a dice that they can roll. But then off of their turn, yeah, it's something that the players can just cut through pretty easily. Yeah. And you get to have both of those things. Like, you get to overwhelm, you get to show, like, here's a dozen guys coming right at you. But then it's like, oh, also, you're powerful enough to take on all of those guys. I think it's a great way to balance out that feeling of power.
Yeah, for sure. And like also they're built into like the chaff trait. If they automatically succeed on like a save or like a check or something like that, where they would take damage if they succeed, they just don't. So like, you know, it makes it so like you just don't have like an easy solution, other than like, you know, getting a reliable weapon and shooting them. But like if they have armor too, like that could be something cool. It's just like, honestly, they just add to a battle. Like I would always bring grunts, like always, like just put them in there. You're never gonna go wrong. The players will never be mad. I think the only thing they'll be mad at if you don't hint that they're grunts, because if they go, you know, they go Nova on a 1 HP enemy, like that's not fun.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Right? It's no fun for them. Don't. Then you're gonna be like, well, you should have scanned, and it's like, listen, man.
Yeah, you should have. That wasn't my fault. That thing I don't know about.
Which you could punish your players that way, but I'm not that person. I will warn somebody like, hey, no, dude, don't worry about it. Like, I know this super cool movie you want to do, just chill out. Like, I got you, fam. Like, he's not the dude for it. Like, and then if you do, I would just roleplay as like, oh my god, he killed Bob.
It's freaking incinerated.
Yeah, he didn't even have a chance. Poor Bob. But yeah, grunts are cool. Always use them, in my opinion. There's never a situation where you couldn't have some dudes with 1 HP running around. And it gives you more stuff to play with. Like, the grunts still have the same power output as regular enemies. It's just that, like, the players choose to deal with them or not, or focus on some other threats or whatever. I think they're just kind of a good almost like specialized unit that is still generic enough to fit in any situation and gives the players like more things to think about. Like they're not so like single-minded, I guess, or or focused, right? They have to split their attention.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Like 4 grunts can be more of a threat than one single enemy because they split things up so much.
Oh yeah, and they could like be in different places, and like if it's an objective place, like oh my god, dude, you are like a gauntlet just trying to fend off waves and waves of grunts, like jeez.
Yeah.
And then you walk away from the fight, and the players just killed like 100 dudes, and then all the enemies in later combats, like oh my god, they're massacred our troops. Like you guys are awful. No one was alive. We had to send them home in boxes.
Yeah, ignoring the fact that those guys were there just to steal water.
Yeah, it was a whole planet's worth. It would have taken them years, decades. One dude was about to retire.
Well, oh man. Yeah. Ron, anything else you want to say about the NPC templates we've covered today?
Yes, that's the only thing we've talked about today.
Yep.
Wow. No, I really like them a lot. I guess like I feel like too they kind of spice up like a table of veteran players, right? Like they might be familiar with it's tough to kind of hold on information in your head anyway, but like you know if you play Lancer a lot, you're kind of familiar with like what a witch does, what all these other stuff does, and that's kind of like viewing these NPCs in a different context would shake things up and get your players being like, oh no, right? Like that's kind of what you want, right?
Right. Yeah, and again, like each template is an exponential increase on the sorts of NPCs that you can throw at your players, so you can just keep mixing things up.
Yeah, I don't know. Let us know what you think about these ones that we covered. We'll cover the other ones later. Sorry about taking up half the time with Gundam. But yeah, let us know about your thoughts about the Universal Century or anything else about Gundam. Or any other show we talked about today. Or Lancer. Or what else we talked about? Oh, Union. Yeah, and how they're an empire. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Like that's how I run Union. Tell me how you run your Union.
Actually, yeah, I'm very curious. How have other people used Union in their games? Because again, my approach is I'm just running a one-shot, so Union is just the good guys, and you're working for the good guys. But I am curious how people would have used Union in their own campaigns and whatnot.
Yeah, I think that like Union should be the bad guys more often, at least evenly. It would be cool to be the other guys fighting Union soldiers. I think that would be the cool part. Yeah.
I don't know.
Destiny Seed 2 action.
True. I'm kind of more on the stand of like from Union's perspective. Well, not just perspective, but like you know, like how we were talking about before. Different sides think they're the good guys rather than I don't know. We can get into it in a different episode, I guess. Because I like the idea of Union as the good guy, but from the other perspective, seeing it, that's not something I put too much thought into, at least just for my one shots. But yeah, if I do a campaign, that is something I want to think about more.
Yeah, for sure.
In any case, I think that's gonna do it for this week. If you are a fan of Lancer out there, and if you are on YouTube, then go ahead and check out the description for this episode, because there will be a whole bunch of Lancer writers and creators linked below and all the awesome stuff that they have put out. As well, I want to shout out the Untold Stories project, where I am at on Tuesdays for the Echoes in the Threshold Cthulhu Awakens campaign. We are teenagers messing with stuff that we should not be messing with, and it certainly will mess back. In addition, they have a bunch of one-shots going on, so go ahead and check out the channel for all sorts of different stuff. In addition, on this channel, there are weekly gaming streams, currently playing through Baldur's Gate 3, Armored Core 6, and The Evil Within, and planning to do the DLC for The Evil Within. Oh, actually, by the time this episode comes out, the DLC for Alan Wake will be out. So, throwing out the whole schedule so I can play that Alan Wake 2 DLC. That's about it. Anything else we need to say before we head out of here?
No, I think we're good.
Alright, well, for all of our GMs and players out there who stay on topic and never get distracted, just remember to keep on winning with dice, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.